How did you feel before you're about to do your drugs? Or not even before you're about to do them, but once you made contact with your dealer. Hello friends, my name is Vas Solo. I'm a recovered drug addict and alcoholic and a certified meditation coach. And the big question is, how can people like you and I, who are in recovery from addiction, who want to be happy, joyous, and free, what are the things that we need to do in order to be successful and to grow into who we are meant to become? That is a big question, and the show will give you the answer. My sponsor was awesome. He helped me recover from addiction by taking me through the 12 steps, and he said a lot of really wise things that helped me along the way. One of those things that stuck with me is that he told me, he said, Vas, you need to avoid two emotions while in recovery because they are extremely dangerous to your recovery. And he said those emotions are fear, and then the second one that he said actually surprised me. He said it's excitement. So let's look at both of those emotions and why they're so dangerous. Let's look at fear first. I remember when the pandemic first started and everybody started to panic, and they went and bought rolls of toilet paper, and people were hoarding food, and the news was full of fearful messaging. The whole atmosphere in the world was really fearful, and I remember that I, for a moment, became fearful as well. I remember I had this one moment where it was in the morning, I was driving to meet one of my sponsees to work on the steps with him, and I parked to get a coffee, and I saw a text message from my best friend, and he was saying, did you hear about this and that on the news? You gotta, fill up your tank full of gas and grab yourself a sack of potatoes and come up north with me, and because society is only 3 meals deep or something to that account. And I remember the fear was palpable in that messaging, and it gripped my heart for a moment, and I felt it as well. But I caught myself because I had been in the program for a couple of years by that point, and I knew how dangerous fear as an emotion is to us in recovery. And I remember I said, I'm not going to allow myself to be consumed by this. No matter what's going to happen, I can't control it. It is clearly God's will. So I'm just going to place my faith in God and do whatever God wills me to do. And by the way, I didn't mention that once the pandemic hit, I lost almost all of my personal training clients. So I was basically without a job. So there's a lot of factors that could have justified feeling fearful and did. But the point is that I decided that I was not going to let fear control me. And so instead, what I decided to do was, like I said, to have faith and also to just use the time that I had to be productive, to meet with my sponsees and help them work the steps so they can recover, to start my YouTube channel, which didn't exist at the time, which now I had time for to do. And also to just be as loving and as caring towards my friends and my loved ones, my acquaintances, and to support them through this as much as I possibly could. And once I made that decision in my car, all of a sudden that fear just completely dissipated. Now fast forward to 2.5 years from then, I have my YouTube channel, I've gotten certified as a meditation coach, I've helped a lot of people in recovery, I've been there for my family, I didn't relapse. So a lot of positive things came out of it, only because I did not let fear bog me down. And instead, I just placed my faith in God. And that's exactly what we need to do when we feel fearful, because when we are full of fear, that means we don't have faith. But if we are full of faith, fear cannot exist. So faith is the antidote to fear. The other emotion that I mentioned that surprised me when you mentioned it was excitement. Because to me, excitement seems sort of like a positive thing. I'm excited about something, right? Like it seems like a really nice emotion to experience. However, I realized that excitement is actually very dangerous, especially for those of us in recovery, because, well, if you remember, how did you feel before you're about to do your drugs? Or not even before you're about to do them, but once you made contact with your dealer. I felt excited. Some people even say that the anticipation of getting high was almost as good as the high itself. And so excitement is a very dangerous emotion, because when we get excited about something, that takes us emotionally really high up, and there's a certain expectation within that excitement that something is going to happen that's going to justify it. So I'm going to share another story. About a year ago, I started to invest for the very first time. I had zero experience with it, but I started thinking about my future and my financial situation, which wasn't great. And I started to try to come up with a way to remedy that, to sort of start saving for the future, for when I have kids, hopefully. And so once that thought started to consume my mind, I started to look for ways how to do that. And I started watching a bunch of YouTube videos about it. And long story short, I found some videos that were talking about potential investments that could reap a really big reward, and not in a very long time span, like fairly quickly within the time span of 6 months to a year. And so once I learned about these investments and what they were, I got extremely excited about it, and I started to invest. I started to put my money into them. And what ended up happening is that excitement was then replaced by fear when I invested and I saw that my stocks were going down, and that made me nervous. And then once they were going up, I'd get excited again. Right? Because now all of my expectations were going to be satisfied, and things were going to work out. And then they go down again and I'd feel like crap, and they'd go up again and I'd get excited. And so I went on this emotional roller coaster. Fast forward to now, I still have those stocks. Some of them have made me a little bit of money, but they didn't provide the returns that I expected. But what I learned through all of that is that excitement is a very dangerous emotion, because it takes us up, and what goes up has to come down, right? So either we're going to satisfy whatever we're excited about, right? And then we're going to want to experience that excitement again, because we become addicted to that high. Or when it doesn't pan out, we crash, and then we experience a feeling of sadness, a feeling of emptiness. And so if we habituate ourselves to wanting to experience that uplifted, excited feeling all the time, we're going to really leave ourselves at the hands of our emotions and expectations. And inevitably, we're going to be disappointed, or at the very least, we're going to become addicted to constantly feeling that way. And spirituality and finding God requires actually a great deal of stillness and disciplining the mind and heart to become less restless and more calm, because the mind and heart are sort of like our antenna or radio station for picking up God's signal. And if they're full of static, full of restless vibrations or waves, then there's no way we're going to feel close to God. When I was going through this whole emotional roller coaster with my investments, I really struggled to connect spiritually. I didn't stop meditating or doing any of the things that the 12 steps teach, or that my spiritual teacher teaches. I kept doing them, but it was extremely difficult, and it was very hard for me to feel connected to that subtle wave, that wavelength of spirituality, and which is where we really truly find the peace of mind and satisfaction that we truly want, rather than that excitement which comes and goes all the time. And so I really struggled, even to meditate deeply. I really struggled because the mind and heart were restless. And so for those of us who are in recovery, we have to avoid these extremes of emotion at all costs, because they could really take us out, literally take us out and use, especially if we're new, or if we have some recovery, they might not take us out, but they're really going to block our progress on the spiritual path. And through that experience, I mean, I didn't relapse. I went through some difficult times, and it was a lesson for me that what I truly want isn't in the world, isn't all of that excitement. All of that stuff is fine. It's good to plan. It's good to be responsible, but to understand that ultimately the only satisfaction we can find is in God, right? In being close to God, in doing God's will. And from that spiritual realm, everything else flows and gives us direction and guidance and shows us how to overcome our obstacles, but we have to be tuned into it. Otherwise, when we lose that contact, we start to feel dis-ease, right? And what is addiction? It's a disease of the body, mind, and soul. So I wanted to share that with you today. Let me know if, what your thoughts are. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to support the page and the channel by following Recovery Plus, by subscribing to the YouTube channel. Give me a like, share the video, and comment below. Thank you so much. Joy to you.